Hello, Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Hope you're all safe, sound, and healthy. And I think it is imperative that we continue the theme. I mean, it's in a way, it is a continuance because in the last podcast, I talked about, people's reactions, tourism, America, this and that. So, and about an Indian American vlogger or Indian Canadian vlogger whose name is nowhere near Indian, which is why, I don't even know. It was Loy Machedo, or I don't know, I have to check it out again. But anyway, so I didn't want to take any names, and I try to forget the names even, so that because I don't like to pinpoint and attack or target somebody in any case. And if you remember, I talked about how he also, like everybody else, just wanted to keep on dragging Muslims while comparing with what, while complaining about how the Hindu Indians are kind of ruining everything abroad, and then and then suddenly he remembered to try to drag in Muslims and saying, and as I said, he had nothing to compare. I mean, what can you compare? Muslims like to avoid dogs because they don't consider dogs clean animals, or that Muslim women don't shake hands with strange men. And seriously, you're actually trying to compare that to public processions and doing the whole Ganga festival in a public park, or in a river where all the public is like now disturbed and stunned and confused as to what is going on. I mean, you can't compare the two. But anyway, so now here's another where there is this. Listen, as I said, I've talked about this in my recent podcast, that India and Pakistan recently, especially, there has been, I mean, since Imran Khan kind of put Pakistan back on the map again, and because there were a lot of quiet tourists in Pakistan for decades. I mean, these are tourists from Europe and America and Canada who have been coming and enjoying, especially the northern areas of Pakistan, and and going back, and they all have had the same thing. That their feedback was always the same, that Pakistan is an amazing place, and we don't understand why Pakistan doesn't promote itself. Well, that's because Pakistan was, the authorities of Pakistan, the governments of Pakistan were too busy being corrupt to want to do anything good for Pakistan. As you can see from the current government, where once again Nawaz Sharif comes up and a recording of his is leaked where he's ordering the assassination of Imran Khan. So again, as I said, if Nawaz Sharif actually had the guts to order the assassination of Imran Khan for a third time now, then you can understand that America is behind it again, because these people are minions of America. So if they have decided to very openly communicate such a thing, which they themselves would actually never dare to, mind it, because Nawaz Sharif knows that if he manages to get somebody else killed today, then tomorrow it's going to be even easier to get himself killed. You understand? Somebody can get him killed. So that is one thing that I'm sure Nawaz Sharif would never actually want to personally do. And he would much rather just have Imran Khan in jail and locked away and in prison and never get out. You understand? For him also, it's better. So the fact that Nawaz Sharif for a third time now gives this order that Imran Khan should be assassinated at all points, while his sons, Imran Khan's sons, are in America, making waves, huge waves. That in itself tells you that the American establishment is scared, because remember, the Goldsmith family is not a small fry. It is one of the most elite, most important Jewish families with a lot of power, and politicians are practically nothing to them. They are really one of those families, and they're scared that his sons might suddenly bring in their maternal family in to play and use that power and authority, and obviously then American establishment will have no say, and they won't be able to do anything, because even amongst the Orthodox as well as the unorthodox Jewish blocs, this is a very powerful family that wields a lot of authority. So amongst politicians, and even within the British government, it wields a lot of authority, like it or not. Okay, it is a powerful family. So I guess they're shitting their pants because of that. So you have that. But I mean, yeah. So Imran Khan was the one who actively worked for the tourism of Pakistan, and for the environment, for because Pakistan is essentially a green country. But again, this corrupt government in the previous years has been actively destroying our environment and our greenery and our trees. And Imran Khan is the one who started the billion tree tsunami project, which now, as you can see, many international charities and many other countries all over the world have taken, the idea, and they're running with it, and they're working on it as well. But who was the first one to begin the billion tree project? That was Imran Khan. So I mean, he, as I said, Imran Khan was known to have laid down a lot of precedents for the current world right now, and a lot of Western countries have literally been following. So while he was ousted, the Western countries once again have borrowed something from us and are using it to their full advantage. Ironies of irony. And now here we are, as I said, when he put Pakistan back on the map. So there's been a lot of tourism, but not only just a lot of tourism. As I said, times have also changed. Before, the tourists were actual tourists, they were not vloggers and all. But now a lot of vloggers have come, a lot of food vloggers have come, a lot of tourists who are vloggers have come, travel vloggers, whatever. And they have all mentioned, as I stated previously, they've all mentioned this one thing, that whenever they compare India to Pakistan, they think that Pakistan is a breath of fresh air, and they think that India is a huge disappointment. Let's just put it that way, okay? I'm trying to put it in a nutshell because I don't want to repeat the whole thing again and again. You can go and, it's all over the internet, so you can check it out. So even when then India decided to attack Pakistan recently, there were a lot of tourists that were moving from India to Pakistan, and and their stay was cut short in Pakistan, and many of them have actually returned. They were so disappointed in their stay being cut short in Pakistan because of that skirmish, that they actually came back literally 2 weeks later. Some of them came back a week later, some 2 weeks later, some within a month. So this kind of also created a whole new scenario where more and more of vloggers and more of tourists started talking against India, okay, and not in a good way. They talked about how the people were. They talked about how they were always being scammed because they were foreigners. They talked about the fact that being females posed them danger because they were stalked. They had creepy people coming up to them. They had people taking selfies with them. They had people. And you know what, actually, the thing about, at least I would say one thing, you find that harassing, but if as a foreigner, if you're a foreigner in Korea or in China, you do kind of face more or less insert, especially in China, as we know, especially if you're a black person in China, or if because listen, in a country where you have an ethnic race that is predominant and they are not used to, especially a huge country like China or a huge country like India, you cannot expect every single place to be aware of foreigners, because when they visit countries, they go to particular states and cities that are known for their tourism, right? And even within those states and cities, they go to particular places that are known for their tourism. Those places are used to having foreigners, they're used to having tourists, and so they don't give a damn. But when you go to other areas that have not yet been exposed to all that tourism, I'm sorry, but you have to allow for it. You have to allow for them being, curious about you, or for staring at you and all. Now, even though as a Muslim, I would say that staring in Islam is a sin. You cannot stare at somebody. It's considered rude. It's considered a sin, and it's considered bad manners. And, somebody can actually come up to you and he's allowed to smack you for staring at that person. But unfortunately, as I said, because in the Indian culture, a lot of it, which is still somehow or the other part of the whole subcontinent to some degree, one of that culture is staring at people. It's not that they just stare at foreigners, by the way. It's a village thing, okay? It's something that is in villages. So, and there are a lot of villagers who have come to the cities for the sake of employment, for the sake of bettering their living, and they obviously, you do not expect them to change themselves. There was a time when people used to come to the cities, they used to change themselves, but now, as movement and population of villagers in cities has become to the point where it is oversaturated, they do not bother changing their mannerisms. They do not bother learning the city mannerisms, for example, or the mannerisms of the urban areas. And so they bring in their brand of culture, or their brand of mannerisms, or their brand of traditions with them. And it's not just uncomfortable for you, it's uncomfortable for the city folk as well, by the way. One of them being staring you up and down. And it's not just men, by the way, women stare too, okay? And they stare with their mouths open, and you feel so uncomfortable. You feel as if something's on your face, okay? So they don't just do it to foreigners, they do it to city people as well. They do it to anybody and everybody. It's a village thing, okay? And cities are filled with people from the village. The population of the cities themselves is not large enough, so all that huge population that you see in certain big cities of the subcontinent, they are basically overpopulated by villagers, okay? Now, getting that out of the way, I do understand that yes, there is a lot of there is obviously a lot of scamming in India and all. But as I said, as a foreigner, you will, when it comes to whipping out your mobiles, and at least the Indians ask you, that can I take a photograph with you and all. They like to take photographs to commemorate a foreigner in their midst. That, oh, for them it's something unique, that they've seen a foreigner, they've come across a foreigner. But if you go to China, the way they do it is they just whip out their mobiles, and they start recording you without even your permission. And yes, they too come and tell you that, oh, can I take a selfie and this and that. Okay, they do it with foreigners. And so there it is. You can't. And China is supposed to be, again, it depends on, your image of China is that it is technologically, scientifically advanced, and it's, there's a lot of education there and everything. But again, you see, when it comes down to common people, for example, you're talking about, now here I'm going to talk about Boyd. Okay, so this is a I just actually listened or watched his vlog where he was reacting to a female Korean travel blogger who recently had gone to India, and she literally broke down, cut her stay short, and she left, and she literally said it on camera, I hate India, right? So there is the vlogger who reacted to this is Mr Lboyd Reacts, right? And he's an African American, and he also mentioned that he also had a very bad experience in India, which is why he cut his own stay short. He was supposed to be there for 7 days, but he left after 4 days because of the same problems that he faced, where the way the people behaved, the way they stared at you, the way they tried to scam you was, and the way you're treated because of your skin color and this and that. Now, the problem about skin color, this is again an ode to the British, okay? If you look at pre-colonial India, skin color was never a thing. And you cannot just, you cannot just shame India for this. Every single colony, every single former colony of the British, they are now facing this toxic colonial trait that the British have left of treating people according to their skin color. It is in Korea, okay? It is in the subcontinent. It is in Africa, by the way, like it or not, okay? It is in various parts of Africa, although I am quite happy to say, as a person who has lived in Africa, who spent my childhood there, was born there, I am happy to state that still the Africans prefer their own skin color, and they give a lot of importance, and they treat, I mean, in Nigeria, I remember there was this thing, black beauty. The blacker you are, the more beautiful you are. And I think this is a criteria for most of the African countries, which I think is something that I find so lovely, and I think it's so beautiful. And the Indians and the Pakistanis also have been trying to, because the thing about countries like Korea, India, Pakistan, and China is we have different skin tones depending on the region in which you're living in. And in our case, in the subcontinent, especially in Pakistan, it depends on which ethnic background you're from and which region you're from. So, for example, if you go to the northern areas, because they have a different ethnic background, you will find colored eyes, extremely fair skinned, almost Grecian, Macedonian ethnicities. On the other side, you will find the Iranian, Aryan. We are predominantly Aryans. That is why in Pakistan we say that despite the fact that we are actually an amalgamation of different ethnicities and different races, but we are predominantly Aryan, Central Asian. So you will see different skin colors, skin tones, and in Pakistan, thankfully too, as in India, more and more women came out and talked against this post-colonial, stamp that we keep putting on people, where we grade them on their skin color. So yeah, skin color shouldn't matter, and it never mattered until the British came and destroyed everything. And as I said, it's not just the subcontinent, the Koreans, because of the Americans, the Koreans also have this thing where the skin color distinction is made. Okay, and I don't even understand why can't you celebrate your own skin color seriously? Same as for the Indians. And so, point being here again, as I said, you cannot blame India for that. So that is my answer to Boyd's thing. Okay, especially considering how you are an African American, and you know that in America too, basically blacks, the way they're treated. Why do you think it all started? Who do you think started this whole racial problem? Again, it's the white people. It's the ignorant white pirates who went around all over the world and then decided that they should stamp their superiority of their white skin because they had nothing better to offer except for the color of their skin. And they decided to just pollute the world with that whole racial crap. And that is why they essentially have been treating the blacks, who they thought that because they were black, so they were inferior, so they could only be slaves. And then and the blacks had to fight for their rights. And again, who was it who started fighting for their rights and for equality? It was the black Muslims. The black Muslims who taught them the concept of Islam, where everybody is equal, where race doesn't matter, where gender doesn't matter, where you cannot discriminate people based on their race or their gender or which country they come from or their ethnicity or whatever. Okay, these were black Muslims who brought this to the front. They are the real freedom fighters. They are the real concept changers. They are the ones behind the civil war that finally broke down slavery and finally eliminated slavery. So again, I would say that for a black man to shame India for treating people differently based on their skin color, I think, yeah, I think that was going too far, considering that in America right now, even today, the way blacks are treated, it is there. And it all goes down. No matter how much you try to bring in, no matter how many stories you try to bring in, no matter how many excuses and justifications, no matter how many theories no, it all boils down to the color of your skin. That is why the blacks of America were always treated the way they were treated, because of the color of their skin. Okay, so you cannot go and shame India for that. That is another thing. And also India also, but in the sense that I would say that I can shame India for that, saying that the Dravids, as I said, the Pakistanis are predominantly Aryans. And Pakistan is actually the cradle of the Indus civilization, not India. This part of India, which is now Pakistan, this is the cradle of the Indus civilization. So India is predominantly the Dravid race. Now the Dravid race is basically more or less a sister race to all the dark races, really. If you look at the Caribbean, if you look at Sri Lanka, if you look at West Indies, if you look at, if you look at all these countries, and if you look at all these regions, you will see, and even if you look at the Aborigines of Australia, as you see, basically, essentially, majority of the world is dark skinned. It can be attributed to various factors, the most important factors being your diet and the regions in which you're living. So basically, countries that face a lot of heat, countries that have a lot of sun, countries that have summers, countries that are not very cold, countries that have certain particular crops and diets, based on, again, the climate and the weather. Those are the countries that you will see that melanin plays a huge role. And so majority of the world is dark skinned. White people are a minority. I'm sorry, but you are a minority, you're not a majority. And again, you were not always white if you go way, 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 way back to history. So, it was again where you lived, the climate where you lived, the diet that you had to consume in those climates, the loss of melanin leading to white skin. Okay, that is it. That is it. You lost your melanin basically. And genetics, if you ever study science, you would know that your genes are always constantly changing to adapt to the conditions in which you live in. And again, a lot of that has to do also with the diet intake, with what you grow, what you eat, which again is environmentally dependent on the climate and the geography, the location, the land, the soil, everything works together. Okay, so we are all products of the environment in which we live, to put it very simply. Okay, so we are all pretty much dark skinned. The majority of the world is dark skinned. So yeah, for India to try to behave as if, yeah, Indians are predominantly extremely dark. The Dravid race, the pure Indian race, is extremely dark as well. So yeah, for them to try to, that is again why I say that that the people of the subcontinent, they, or the people of Africa, or the people of the Caribbean, or any of those who were exposed to British colonialism or French colonialism, they need to strip themselves off of those colonial remnants, and they need to bring back their own history. Because if you look again, prior to colonization, skin color wasn't there. It wasn't something that was important. And sultry, dusky skins were considered highly beautiful, in the subcontinent. And why change that all of a sudden? Because you got exposed to what, white people? That is extremely stupid. So to that point, I would agree. And as I said, I think that Indians are getting more and more aware of this, Indian girls, because they know that at the end of the day, majority of the people of the people of the subcontinent, in the sense of Bangladesh and India, they are dark. Why is it a problem? Why is it a problem? This is how we are. This is our race, So yeah, it's true that again, certain regions of India and certain regions of Bangladesh and certain regions of Pakistan have extremely fair, extremely white complexioned people. But again, it's the regions. Look at the regions they're living in. Look at their ethnic backgrounds from behind. We are basically again an amalgamation of a mixed bag of various races, various ethnicities. Okay, all of us in the subcontinent. So that is pretty stupid to even try to go there. Now let's move on to one thing I do have to comment on, again, Lboyd, is because he made another comment that was a bit idiotic. Is like where he said that when he was in Morocco, I would think I would say idiotic just for the lack of a better word, but I mean it was nonsensical in the sense that he was saying he was in Morocco and he had this one incident where the reason why he likes Morocco is because the locals of Morocco also do not allow anybody to come and disturb another foreigner. So, and then he cited this one incident where he said that there were a group of a group of an Islamic organization, and he actually decided to call them ISIS. I mean, like, seriously, how do you even know if they're ISIS? First of all, again, as I said, please pull out your history and find out that this whole ISIS fabrication, this whole narration was fabricated by your own government, because ISIS is essentially authentically an intelligence network, okay? An intelligence network that was made by the joint forces of the CIA, the Mossad, and the MI6, okay? So please First, get your facts straight there. Okay, ISIS is literally an intelligence network of the three countries. Okay, so just because they decided to, fool the world and say, oh, ISIS are a group of Muslims and this and that, yeah. And number two, not everybody's ISIS, okay? Just because some group decided to come to you and say that they are, that if you would like to donate to their cause, it's not like they actually told you that, oh, we're ISIS and we want you to donate to our cause against America. I mean, seriously, you're just implying all of that. Unless you would like to correct me and quote them, that yes, this is exactly what they said. So not everybody's ISIS. So please, again, that was so typically American of him. That was again the same point that I keep on and on raising about how the Americans are so isolated that they believe everything their government has fabricated, and at the end, they think that it's all good because when their eyes are opened and when they finally wake up to reality, then they just have to just apologize to the rest of the world for wreaking havoc. Like how they apologized for Vietnam, and then they apologized for Iraq, and then they apologized for Afghanistan. Seriously? This is a pattern, and this is a very, very, very annoying, very irritating pattern that has been observed by the American public. And as I said recently, you will not be able to sit and apologize for Palestine or Kashmir now, okay? There will be no apologies accepted. You are aiding and abetting your own government in the whole of this shit, and you will have to pay. Just like how we, the common people, are paying for what your government is doing, you will have to pay now for what your government is doing. There is no backing out with a stupid, hollow apology, okay? So just keep your apologies to yourself. Ignorance is not a bliss here, and ignorance is not a justification for you people to just turn a blind eye to whatever it is that your government is doing all over the world, and then suddenly saying, oh, my bad, I didn't know my government was doing this. We apologize. Yeah, shut up. So now that I've cleared these 2 points, let's move on. That yes, recently I have seen that there has been to me it was a bit awkward because it seemed a bit deliberate, that because, as I said, Pakistan kept on and on coming up as the most hospitable country, the most friendly country, where people are always helpful, they're always hospitable, and they never scam you, and in fact they don't even take money from you if you're a foreigner. They say you're a guest and this and that. Whereas in India it's the opposite, where they said that they always scam you, they always try to rip you off. And especially if you're a female and alone, then there's a higher chances of getting harassed in India, whereas in Pakistan it is mashallah, obviously. To be honest, I'm always scared about what but up till now, there has been about 99.9% of positive feedback from foreign females in Pakistan, saying that actually they have had the safest and the best experience in Pakistan, again, as opposed to India, and that in Pakistan, in fact, never once have they been harassed. If anything, they their security was well in hand, and they felt very safe, and they felt free, and nobody bothered them. So thank you, Pakistani men, for having at least that much sense. Yeah, at least you have that much sense. Okay, so now because of that, as I said, recently, very, very recently, I saw some awkward deliberate attempts by a few Indians who try to mimic the Pakistanis by trying to be over friendly with their foreigners and saying, oh, please sit down, you're our guest, oh, we will help you, and this and that. But it seemed, sorry to say, very artificial, and it was so obvious that they were trying to mimic the Pakistani counterparts that it was a bit weird. So I cannot comment much on that, but I can say that yes, generally, even as Pakistanis, when our experience in India is usually not that great either. And we always thought that it's because we're Pakistanis, they treat us like that as soon as they find out we're Pakistanis, then that's when they treat us badly. But it seems that they do it with all the foreigners regardless. So I can't say much about that. I can say that yes, my parents have been to India, and my mother, according to her, she seems that she thinks that she has been scammed, where she went to an authentic, bona fide, very old market of India that is a very famous market in Delhi, and that is Chandni Chowk. And I think it is from there that she got as far as she thought, she got real silver jewelry. And you see, the thing is, in Pakistan, when you get real silver jewelry, it is real silver. And you know it's real silver by the way it suddenly gets this, it blackens a little with time. And then when you just wash it off, it goes back to this bright silver. You understand? So the alloys, the 1% alloy that they put in silver just to maintain its solidity, is is the thing that causes that, that tarnishing effect. And the way it tarnishes tells you actually that it's real silver. Whereas the silver that we got from India, that was, it seemed to suddenly fade into a coppery color. From it looked as if a copper color from within was coming. And then my mother's like, oh, we got scammed. And then she asked one or two jewelers, and then in Pakistan, and they were like, actually, you don't really know until you see it or check it or examine it, because actually the alloys that they use in India is different from the alloys they use here. They do tend to use alloys in India while making silver jewelry, where it kind of gives this copperish hue, because they do use, I don't know what metal it is, maybe it is copper itself, or it is something that has the same color as copper. And they said, so yeah, the color when it changes or when it tarnishes, you see that copperish hue. So I don't know. But yeah, my mom did say that, and this is years and years and years ago. Like, this is literally a little more than 2 decades ago. I'm talking about, you know, a little over 2 decades ago when my parents went. And that was my mother's experience, where she felt that as soon as they found out that you were a Pakistani, they tried to scam you, and they asked for double, triple the amount of what the thing actually was. Okay. So now I'm seeing that this is not just because you're Pakistani. As long as you're a foreigner, you're going through all of this. It is sad. It is sad because, listen, as another thing which foreigners have also realized when they've seen that the Indians are also usually very negative. Again, they're, as I said, the Indians are the Americans of Asia. So you can see that they have a lot in common here, where they are brainwashed, they are pretty much ignorant, and they don't know anything about anything. Because again, India is huge, so maybe that's why. But anyway, they have the same problems that the Americans have, which is that they are totally ignorant and they have no clue, and they're easily brainwashed by the government. And as I said, if you talk to them, they always try to talk against Pakistan or Pakistanis. Whereas if you talk to a Pakistani, you will never see them have negative words for Indians. They're always like, yeah, they're our brothers at the end of the day. We just want peace. We just want, and Indians will never say we want peace. Indians are never going to say we want peace. There are very few. Again, you have to be an educated Indian, and you have to be, but again, as I said, India is huge. Pakistan comparatively is small. So India has a huge population, which means obviously their education rate accordingly is larger, but at the same time, compared to their population, it's low. So you have a larger amount of uneducated people, and you have a smaller amount of educated people. If you talk to the educated people, they're different. What they say is different. But if you talk to the common man who's not educated, who's not exposed to the real world, who's not exposed to real news, they have something else to say. It's as simple as that. You can't just, again, blame the whole of India for that. You understand? So yes, these little things, when you take them into account, you try to understand better what's going on. And I hope that I have managed to, come to this point where I do think that, yes, people, I mean, for example, I had a very, very, very bad experience in France. Now, France is supposed to be first world, isn't it? And I'm talking about 2002. 2001, 2002. France is supposed to be like first world and all, but literally the French people are as racist and as rude and as uncouth. Yeah, you mean, you look at the Western world is always trying to romanticize France. It's always trying to romanticize Paris. It's always on and on about, Paris this and Paris that. Whatever culture Paris has managed to get, especially with the cuisine and everything, we all know that this was the Islamic influence. We all know that, especially Turkish influence. We know that Europe is heavily, heavily influenced by Islam, because after all, Islam ruled in Spain. So whatever you call culture, that Europe has, it's all Islamic culture. Okay, and this is a fact. I'm sorry, it is a fact. It's on the record. Again, nobody can challenge it. So whatever culture it is that you think France has, that is all heavily, heavily, heavily Islamically influenced. But otherwise, if you just look at the French people themselves, generally, yeah, no, 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 no. The worst people ever. Worst people ever. France was such a bad experience when I went there as a student that till date, if anybody asks me, oh, we have an option whether we should go to France or we should go to another country, I'm like, go to whatever country you want to. Just don't go to France. And if you are going to France by any chance, don't have any expectations. The people over there are even worse than you think our people, because we in Pakistan, we're always bitching about our people being toxic. We're bitching about our people. Again, as I said, the irony of being a Pakistani is that people in Pakistan are amazing towards foreigners and guests. Amazing, amazing. But with each other, we're toxic. Okay? We're always harming each other. We're always deceiving each other, but we will never do it to a foreigner. Okay, that's just weird, but that's how it is. We will leg pull each other. We will do anything to each other, but not to a stranger. Okay, so yeah. So yeah, in Pakistan, when we're always bitching about the toxicity of the people here, and I'm like, you know what? When you go to France, you'll think Pakistan actually has a little more manners. Seriously, you will actually find a lot of things that you like and prefer in Pakistan as compared to France. So yeah, having lived there, and I was scammed there in France too, by the way. There's a lot of scams in France too. So don't you dare think, because it is essentially a tourist country. Remember, as I said, the whole of Europe literally it survives on tourism and international students. And the same as with America, the same as with Canada, the same as with Australia, all the Western world, they survive solely on foreign influx, okay? On foreign students, on foreign workers, on foreign immigration, and on tourism, okay? So, yeah, you're literally surviving on tourism. So, there is going to be a lot of scamming. So, in France, there's a lot of crime rate as well. There are thieves, there are pickpockets, which now obviously in England too, you will see a lot of that in London. And again, in London, they try to push it on the immigrants, illegal immigrants. Like, are you crazy? You actually want me to believe that? The whole point of an illegal immigrant is that they like to keep their heads down because they're illegal. They will never do anything to jeopardize their stay or jeopardize them getting exposed to the authorities. It's the locals. It's the locals, okay? It's not the immigrants. Immigrants work twice as hard as the locals. Okay, immigrants are the ones who are desperate to get their life straight. They're the ones who are working 16 hours with exploited pay. They're not the ones who are yapping about minimum pay wages. They're not. They're the ones who are being exploited. They're the ones who are working their asses off. They're the reason your country is still managing to survive. The day, as I said, like look at America, the day you start removing your immigrants, just see how you suffer. America's a huge country and it's suffering. You're tiny, tiny assed countries. Imagine your level of suffering. Okay, don't you dare try to blame illegal immigrants. It's your locals. I not only lived in England as a student, I also taught there, and that is again till 2009. Okay, so till the year 2009, in fact between 2008 and 2009 is when the street crime began more and more prominent, and they were all local native teenagers. Okay, those teenagers have now grown up. Now what do you expect them to be? Many of them have probably now got their own rings, their own criminal rings, and you dare to blame it on the illegal immigrants? The illegal immigrants, I've known illegal immigrants in Europe, okay? Believe me, they will do anything and everything to keep their head down. They never do anything to compromise on their situation, on their living, okay? Because they know how they got there. And they know that they can easily be deported once found. So no, it's not the illegal immigrants. Shut your trap on that, okay? I've lived there. I know it. But yeah, the one thing that Mr. Boyd said about the Romanis, that is true. I faced a lot. I saw a lot of that in France. Okay, so in that part of Europe you will see a lot of these gypsies. They claim to be direct descendants of the original Indus civilization, of the Aryans of India. And that, if you remember, it is known in history that the original Aryans, they were not just farmers and everything, but they also were nomads, and they kept moving from place to place. And it is known that they moved to Europe. You know, why else are the Germans claiming that they are Aryans? Although I don't even see how. But anyway, so yeah, so the Romanis, they make a lot of noise. To be honest, I mean, the way they kind of make you uncomfortable. They do. I'm sorry, but they do. Yeah, you do get uncomfortable because they're very unabashed in the way they deal with people around them. Um, they would just hop into trains, and then they would sing loudly, and then they would expect everybody to pay them, and then they would go around, and then they would tell you that that if you want fortune telling and all and this and that. But in France they didn't force you, to be honest, to do anything of the sort. So I don't know about his experience in which part of Europe. Was it Spain that he had this experience where he said that they also were kind of come up to you and give you flowers, and then they would want you to pay them. No, I never had any such thing. The Romanis that I met decades ago in France, they were loud, and they could make you uncomfortable and everything. They were known to be thieves. I mean, whenever they entered a store, shopkeepers would be extra vigilant because they always felt that they were stealing something. They would pretend to buy something, but they would steal, and hide them in their huge voluminous skirts within their pockets, hidden pockets. So that was the only deal there. But yeah, the French themselves, I'm sorry. French who? I had the worst, and mind you, I'm somebody who actually has some of my closest friends are French, by the way. But I had the worst experience in France, and I would never go back. Okay? The only thing I liked in France was shopping. Yeah. In England, shopping is completely useless now. It's all rubbish, to be honest. Gone were the days when in England you could find Italian shoes and good quality stuff. It's rubbish. I'm sorry, but England has the quality of stuff. And when I was in France, the quality of stuff was already beginning to go a bit down. People were beginning to talk about it. But we still had very good quality that we could get around 2001, 2002. After that, I don't know. But there we are. So yeah, you can't just say that, because I mean, I'm the reason I'm saying this is because he said that he in his reaction he was like saying that the Korean vlogger, she should have just gone to first world country. That is this is not, she should have just gone to any of those countries. But again, as I said, the first world country doesn't guarantee that you're first world country is England. You go to England as a tourist, and you're going to get robbed. As soon as you come out of the airport, you can get robbed. As soon as you're waiting for the subway station in one of the most busiest places in the poshest area of London, where there is a lot of tourism, by the way, like Kensington side or Westminster and all, you will get robbed. Okay, so don't give me that first world crap. I mean, is what I'm trying to say here. It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. Okay, so yeah, no. Well, this is me signing out. Khuda Hafiz.